Hey, what's up guys? It's Matt from More Music Sessions. This is a beginner saxophone lesson, and we're going to be getting into some more of an initial sound and talking about some other notes. Now, in the previous video that I made, we talked about some fundamentals with playing saxophone, your embouchure, how you set your face, all right? And we went over our first note, D, that we played. So we'll be playing D again, and then we'll be talking about some other notes that we can get into here. All right? So we went over last time how to get a good embouchure, you want to make sure that you're keeping the corners of your face in, thinking of an O face, all right? Overlapping your lower lip to have as a cushion for your reed. You're gonna rest your top teeth on top of the mouthpiece. We're not gonna bite down, all right? Take about half of the mouthpiece into your mouth, all right? And then to take a breath, you wanna take a breath through your mouth. Take a quick deep breath and have a beam of air going into your instrument, all right? Avoid puffing out your cheeks. We want to puff out your gut, all right? Because yeah, if you puff out your gut again, you get the full potential of your airstream. It drops your diaphragm. You're able to expand your lungs more, and yeah, you can get that full airstream. And yeah, if you start feeling your stomach caving in, see if you can push through it as best you can to get the last possible moment of as much as air as you can play into. All right, so let's grab our instruments. All right, we talked about on the previous video of how we assemble our horn. All right, placing your reed where it's just a hair below the mouthpiece. If it's too low or too high, you're not going to get a good sound. You're not going to get the reed to respond as best as you need to get it. So yeah, you just want to place it just a hair below the mouthpiece. That'll be the sweet spot to get a good sound. All right, so we got our instrument all together. Last time we talked about playing D, which if you want to play D, we're going to be placing your first finger, second finger, and third finger down with your octave key right here. And your right hand, we're going to be placing your first, second, and third finger down right here. All right? So let's even practice real quick covering number one, which I'll put in a link for this video you can take a look at as you're practicing, or you can even see it maybe on this video. But it's important to practice these, which we call long tones, with a metronome too, to make sure that you're subdividing your rhythm, or how long you're holding out some of these notes. All right, so we're going to be putting the metronome on. I got my metronome on at 80 BPM. All right, and we're simply going to hold it out for 4 counts. All right, check it out. Now 1, 2, 3. Rinse and repeat. Repetition is important. So when you're doing this sort of stuff, keep doing it over a few times, right? Think of these as basically stretches before you get into the heavy work. So that's the first exercise. All these exercises I'm showing you are out of the book Essential Elements for Band, okay? Which we'll cover different songs out of there as well for the beginner sax lessons. But let's move on to even number 2, all right? So we're gonna still take that same note, and we're still gonna apply the same fundamentals and basics with getting the sound, keeping the airstream going. When you're playing saxophone too, you can even think of directing your air diagonally down. as you're sitting up nice and tall, right? That will help with just making sure you're filling it up. But on the second exercise, we're going to be playing quarter note rhythms, all right? On the first exercise, they give you a rhythm which we call a whole note rhythm, if you're not familiar yet. A whole note rhythm we draw as a circle, and that tells us in music that we're going to be holding that note out for 4 counts, just like I was doing with the metronome, all right? When I was counting, right? Yeah, with the metronome at 80 BPM, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Every time you hear that click, that's the quarter note rhythm too, all right? Which on number 2, the quarter note, we are going to be playing every beat, every count. Yeah, and the way we write a quarter note is if you have a dot and a stem, that tells us that gets 1 count, okay? And a lot of times when we're talking about the beat or the count, we're referring to the quarter note rhythm, all right? So, yeah, that's going to be the case with this one. Now, when we're doing this exercise on number 2, with these quarter notes, it's important that you want to make sure that you're keeping your air stream going even when you're tonguing the notes that you see. So last video we talked about how when you tongue the notes at the beginning of the note, you want to think of saying D. Try saying D right now. D, D. So when you say D, if we pretend my hand is your tongue, your back part of your tongue raises up like this, and you get a funnel with the air in your mouth to get the most potential with your airstream when you're blowing into your instrument. As you go further down the rabbit hole with understanding your instrument too, you'll learn how to manipulate your tongue to adjust your pitch or your tone for your sound for any note that you're playing, all right? Because, yeah, if you drop the back part of your tongue, you can lower the pitch, right? But when you say D, this puts us in a good default position with your tuning, your air support, and your tonguing. Some other teachers might tell you to say ta, right? Ta helps nicely too, but for saxophone, D is the way to go. Yeah, to raise it up and get in the sweet spot for how we're going to be playing it, okay? So now when we're playing number 2, all of these quarter notes where D is, and when we're reading sheet music, again, all we're dealing in sheet music is line notes and space notes. D is considered a line note because it's on the line, all right? It's on the 4th line of what we call the staff. So the staff, you get 5 lines. They go from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have 4 space notes on the regular staff, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? We'll talk more about mnemonics or things to help with remembering the order of the notes going forward, but that's where we place D. It would be considered the 4th line of the music staff, okay? So let's even put the metronome on 60 BPM, all right? So the golden tempo, and tempo is the rate at which you're playing music, whether it be an exercise or song. 60 BPM to 80 BPM is the ideal golden Goldilocks spot kind of area where you can practice certain exercises when you're first getting comfortable. All right, so we're going to be putting it on 60, and we're just going to be playing D, 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 and then we're going to rest after that, okay? Now, you notice how on the right after where they write D, D, D for the second exercise, there's squiggly lines in the next box, right? And each one of these boxes we call measures, all right, if you're not familiar. So Yeah, at the start of number 2, we have the first measure. The second measure has those squiggly lines, and then we're back to playing D 4 times again, and then we keep repeating that. Those squiggly lines are what we call rests. Rest is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to be resting in that moment in that measure. All right, and each rhythm has a correlating rest symbol that goes with it. Okay, so that is the quarter note rest symbol that we use. Normally we wouldn't write it out like that as well, but they're showing you how each one of those rhythms would be written. All right, so it's simply going to be like this. We're just going to be playing D 4 times, rest for 4 clicks with your metronome, or 4 counts, 4 beats. Yeah, if you're not necessarily going with the metronome. And then, yeah, keep moving on to the next, right? But in music, it's important to, to go at a steady rate, to go at a steady tempo. And that's why we practice with the metronome, to get to a natural ability where you're playing at a consistent rate. All right, because yeah, music you could think of as basically your heartbeat. All right, or compare it to your heart, where your heart, yeah, is always pumping, right? And whether it be at a fast rate or a slow rate, it's always at a steady rate. All right, because I tell all you guys all the time, music isn't a race. You want to keep your pace. All right, so work on making sure that you're having a steady, consistent tempo with a lot of the things that we do in music. All right, so we're going to be putting the metronome back on at 60. And like I said earlier, you want to think of basically, you want to make sure you're keeping a steady airstream, a beam of air going into your horn. All right, and just tapping the tip of the reed when you say D, right? So here's your tongue. We're going to be going D, 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 D as your airstream goes, all right? And I'll demonstrate for you right now, okay? So we're going to sound a little like this. We got 1, 2, 3. Rest. 2, 3. Fast airstream, rinse and repeat. Over and over again. All right. So pretty cut and dry exercise, right? That will go a long way with just getting more and more comfortable with your instrument. Nothing is hard in music, just unfamiliar. All right? Keep reminding yourself of that. Be patient with yourself. One of the biggest humps to get over when you're starting out playing a woodwind instrument is getting that initial sound. Whatever level that you're at, it's always good to come back to simple exercises to just ease into making sure you're focusing on your tone, your air support, your embouchure. You know, you always want to come back to the fundamentals or the basics to make sure you're developing your technique and always progressing with your technique. That's always what we're looking for as musicians, to keep seeing how we can progress our technique. So it's gonna go like that, right? Just holding down 4 quarter notes with D, rest, rinse and repeat. All right, so let's go over another note before we gotta wrap up this video. All right, so we were playing D. The next note I want you to know how to play is C. All right, and with C, which I'll put a link to a PDF you can look at as a visual, or I might even, once I get really good at editing, I'll pop up an image you can look at as you follow along in practice. But C is considered a space note where we read music for saxophone. It's on the 3rd space in the staff, okay? And the way that we're going to be playing C, where we're placing our fingers, is going to be our second finger of our left hand. That's it. When you're putting your fingers down on your keys too, think of curling your fingers, all right? Almost like you're holding an imaginary ball. You always want to keep those fingers curled and placed like this, even if you're not using them necessarily, okay? So, I encourage you to practice number 3, which is basically a long tone exercise where you're holding it out for 4 counts and then rest, rinse and repeat, right? But let's go ahead and move on to number 4, two's a team, where we're playing C for 4 quarter notes and D for 4 quarter notes, and we're resting in between that, all right? So this is a great exercise to get you comfortable with moving between C and D, and it's important too because C has no octave key and you're going into a note that has an octave key. So you want to get into the habit of rolling your thumb into the octave key when you get into going into the D note, okay? So let's try it out with the metronome at 60 BPM, all right? Another good habit to get into too is before you play an exercise or song to count either out loud or in your head before you start, all right? And taking a quick deep breath before you play it, all right? So number 4 exercise is gonna go a little like this. We got 2, ready. Again, ready. Think of saying D, keep the air fast. Fast airstream. Ready? Now to D. One more time. And go. Two and D. All right. So that's D and C together with the quarter notes. Two's a team. All right. So get started out with doing that. We'll keep coming back to practicing the fundamentals and working on creating good habits with your technique, thinking of your embouchure, thinking of your posture, thinking of your air support, getting an initial good sound, and we'll take it from there.